the cold weather of winter changes the metabolism of plants, which causes them to go into a state of dormancy. This is most obviously seen with deciduous material, or in other words, the type of plants that will drop their leaves in winter. It's advisable to prune them this time of year because there are less bugs present and ultimately just less pathogens able to infect the wounds that you might be creating. And also it's right before the spring flush, which will heal those wounds much more rapidly. Not all trees want to be pruned this time of year, however. Dogwoods and other spring flowering trees, if you were to prune them, you would actually be cutting off your flower buds. And so it's best to prune those after they finish blooming. Trees like this maple, however, can be pruned. And so today I'll be showing you a couple techniques of how to cut correctly and do some pruning techniques to get a better overall shape and better health for the tree. Before we start pruning, let's talk about tools. There are three main types of tools that you'll be using. You have your hand pruners, your loppers, and pruning saw. For smaller material, hand pruners will get you pretty far. This is a pair of Felcos. It's a great brand. I've had mine for quite a few years. Felco is great because you can get replacement blades, spring, part, whatever, in case you actually do manage to wear them out. For anything too thick for the hand pruners, your loppers will do a decent job. So this will do small trees and shrubs pretty well and pretty quickly. These will come in different sizes in case you need to get a fairly thick branch. But any branches that you won't be able to cut with these, then you'll have to resort to your pruning saw. These also come in different sizes, and there's even collapsible blades for convenience. For the maple, this is what we'll be using because it's a pretty big tree. So the first thing that we're going to take off are damaged branches. This one has a wound up the side of this part of the branch. And another thing, this branch grows really close to this trunk here, and you want to take out branches that are growing into each other or crossing. So this one needs to get taken out. So I'm also going to be removing this branch. It's got some damage up top, and it's also growing really close to this branch up there. And so it's another one of those crossing branches. So yeah, I'm going to remove this one. But since it is so large, I have to implement the 3-cut method. The 3-cut method is used so that way as you're cutting these heavy branches, the weight of the branch doesn't tear away wood and bark down further on the trunk than you want. So to start off, you start with a cut at the bottom, and this is what's going to relieve that pressure from the weight of the branch and keep it from tearing. So you just cut up just a short way. And then you'll go further out from that bottom cut and take the whole branch down. So you can see the importance of that first bottom cut. Had I not made this cut, when the weight of this branch came down, it may have torn more wood and bark further down the tree. So this first cut stopped that tearing. And so that's the first, that's the second. The third is to finish the branch closer to the trunk. And it may be hard to see on the camera here, but there's a little bulge right here. This is the branch collar. You never want to cut beyond that branch collar. So I'm going to cut just this branch and leave just a little bit sticking out there for the tree to seal over. So this maple has really long branches without a lot of growth in the center. And so my approach with this tree is going to be to thin out some of the branches a little bit. That way I can allow more light to get to the center of the tree, more airflow, hopefully get some growth on the inside. And also maybe do a little bit of a crown reduction for the same reasons, and also to reduce the size. So here's a couple of branches that it looks like somebody just cut them in half. And this would be that idea of topping, which is bad. And you can see what kind of growth might come from that. This is not a desirable form. To avoid topping or the negative effects of topping, you have to observe the rule of thirds, which is when cutting back a large branch, you have to make sure that the secondary branch is at least a third of the branch you're cutting off. So this branch, I don't really have a place to cut it back to unless I take it off entirely, which is a possibility. For now, I think what I'll do is just thin out some of these branches to allow some of the morning sun to get in a little bit easier. That way maybe I can get more growth toward the inside of the tree here. I can see some of these branches just aren't really that good in the first place, so I'll take these out. So a crown reduction is the right way to reduce the size of a tree as opposed to topping. Like I was mentioning before, you have to observe the rule of thirds. So to go over that again, this branch here is pretty thick, and so you have to make sure that the secondary branch you're cutting back to is at least a third of the size of the one that you're cutting. And so this one is a pretty good size branch. There is actually another one a little bit lower down on the opposite side, and so this would be a safe branch to cut. So I think I will. That'll allow a lot more light to the center of the tree. Another important rule of thirds is that you don't want to cut more than a third of your tree at one time, because then it can go into shock, just in a similar way to the way topping does. So I think I will stop for now and see what it looks like in the spring. Some pruning jobs can be done all at once, and others may take more time. By training young trees, it makes it easier to maintain them over the years. A good pruning often is not a drastic change, but a subtle improvement.